40.
Or listen on the Sactown Sports app.
(916-339-1140). About to get to the phone lines. We have this Chris Haynes audio we want to get to as well, and why it got out. Kyle and I were talking during the break. Why would it get out? Would the Kings want it to get out? I don't think so. To let people know, hey, we're trying to figure this out. Something like that. I don't know. Real quick, like I said, I had to look up this because if you play in the NBA, I want to give you a level of respect. And quick note, when I was talking about how open the NBA is right now, parity. And, I do think it's another note. I never forget. I know this guy, people go back and forth with him on some of his takes, but, Colin Cowherd is a guy who I used to watch a lot when I was trying to get into the business and things like that. And he said something that always stuck with me, how, people he likes to reference March Madness, college football, but also the pros, in that people think they like parity, but they actually don't. And they more so like we talked about with LeBron and the Cavs or the Warriors when they were rolling, they like to hate watch. A lot of people like to hate watch. And as I look at the parity within the NBA, it should feel like a really good thing. But, the numbers would say otherwise, because there's nobody to come around and we all hate this team, or we all love this team, or half of us love them, half of us hate them, going to the Chiefs and things like that. The NFL probably wanted the Chiefs to win again. Why? Not because they actually care whether they win or lose, but there's more hate watching to be had. Now that the Chiefs I know they're always around, but now that the Chiefs have lost, it's kind of lost its luster a little bit. So when I look at the parity in the NBA and I discuss the Nuggets, this was the lineup. I had to get this guy's name. So I'm watching Lakers Nuggets. And again, I feel bad because the Kings could be in this conversation to just go on a nice run. It's Jokic. Okay. And people are saying, oh my goodness, JJ, look at that defense on Jokic. This was the lineup. It was Jokic, Westbrook, Brown, Gordon, and the dude that I wanted to look up because Julian Strother got into a really bad foul trouble. It was Hunter Tyson. Hunter Tyson was the last guy. So it was those four dudes and Jokic. And I'm thinking, man, if these are the normal, and I know Julian Strother is better, but I mean, even if you replace Hunter Tyson with Julian Strother, you look back at what the Nuggets did in that 9-game winning streak, and Jokic even said it himself, we may have tricked ourselves into thinking that we're a good team because they beat some bad teams. So even the teams that I'm sitting here saying, oh, you got to avoid the Nuggets championship this, Michael Malone said, we don't even have any defense. Our offense has just been really good against bad teams. This is the quote. We had the 9-game winning streak against teams that were injured and teams that were not really good or high in the standings. So maybe we tricked ourselves into thinking that we are playing good. That's from Jokic. So this thing is wide open, right? And it stinks that the Kings aren't really in a position to take advantage of this. And instead, we're having conversations about meetings after games, and we don't even know how that got out. So we're about to get to the phone lines. But Kyle, let's play what you wake up this morning or Saturday morning after the shellacking, and Chris Haynes says, oh yeah, I wouldn't call it drama, but there's more information coming out of the Kings camp. Here it is.
Chris Haynes, and this is your Haynes Brief for today. After the Kings suffered an embarrassing loss to the Golden State Warriors Friday night at home, losing by 24, league sources then informed me that Kings interim head coach Doug Christie called for a meeting after the game with his starting unit. That unit consisted of Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, Zach LaVine, and Sabonis. Now, first and foremost, in that meeting, I was told that Christie reiterated how he's in the fight with them, but there were some issues he wanted to address, such as making sure that everyone understood the gravity of the situation right now. He addressed ball security. He talked about how they've been compromising on defense. He wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. He spoke on learning how to communicate with each other, and he challenged his players to challenge each other in a positive way to yield some positive results. This is Chris Haynes, and you've been briefed.
Thanks, Chris.
The music is
I
crazy.
mean, it's just, I felt like, whoa, what's going on here? I thought it was a news network. I think that's all kind of part of the bit. Great stuff from Chris Haynes.
I hope so, because he needs an editor for these things,
No.
man. Like, the music I had to edit it myself. If on the original clip, the music just comes in at 100 and then his voice is too low.
Well, I've been watching it the whole time, and it's slowly but surely, he's adding bells and whistles.
They're also sponsored, I see.
Yeah, of course. There you go. Thank you, Kyle. All right, so I don't really know how this got out. A couple people, shout out to the Sac Chat, haven't given you a shout out yet, and to the texters, 916-339-1140, about to get to the phone lines. I don't know how this gets out. Some people are saying, well, if you're waiting for an hour, of course there's going to be questions. Again, I don't want to get in trouble, as I have run into a couple people that are higher up here, but I will say this. I mean, it hasn't stopped. They have not had a problem with not saying anything before.
Wait, I'm confused right now. Didn't they say who the executive was that you ran into?
No, they did not.
Oh, okay.
People guessed it, but they did not.
Oh, okay.
They did not.
Let's say this. If we get to 100 likes on the YouTube, I will snitch on who Allen ran into.
Do it from a burner. So you have a conversation going on where it's, oh, well, they kind of felt like they maybe had to say something. Like I said, that's never stopped the Kings before from not saying something. I find it hard to believe, just from, what I've heard, that the Kings said, oh my goodness, this was this was such a big deal that everyone waited an hour. Let's go ahead and tell Chris Haynes, and only Chris Haynes, that the starters had a conversation with Doug Christie. I don't see that happening, right? The last thing I would think that the Kings want is kind of more smoke to this fire. So I don't know how it got out. And, it's hard for me. I know the Keon Ellis thing, if you're just now joining us, I spoke with Sean Cunningham. Keon Ellis was wearing a black jersey, which can denote a starter, but it also can just denote that you were playing with the starting unit. So there is no confirmation that Keon is starting tonight, which doesn't mean that he isn't. But it's hard for me to think that they had a conversation with the starters, and then the very next game they changed the starters. When Chris Haynes was talking about the gravity of the situation, one thing that stuck out to me was that Doug Christie has the most to lose here. These contracts, the starting unit outside, I mean, Keegan is going to get paid, right? Whether that's with Sacramento or somewhere else. But these contracts are guaranteed, right? And even for coaches. But Doug Christie isn't on a deal like Mike Brown. He's an interim head coach. So when you talk about the gravity of the situation, I'm curious, and maybe we'll find out what exactly Doug said, because DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, they're all doing well for themselves. So the gravity, you're going to be employed next season. The most gravity of this situation is on Doug Christie. So I found that little note interesting. And outside of the turnovers and things like that, when we talk about the quote unquote gravity of the situation, Doug Christie has the most to lose if this thing goes south. Everybody else is kind of okay.
Or at least in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things.
They might not be in Sacramento, but they will be around.
Or they will be, because you can't just, it takes two to tango. Right? I mean, maybe a Malik Monk, but Zach LaVine doesn't figure it out. That brother is stuck in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Nobody is trading for him.
They signed up for 2.5 years of Zach LaVine, and probably could have still gotten him this offseason if they hadn't chosen to make the trade. Now, I mean, in the Haynes brief, he gives like some really detailed information about what was discussed in that meeting. And maybe the meeting wasn't like just private. Maybe there were other people in the room, but if it were, there's only 6 people that would know the details of the meeting. Right. So therefore you can deduce
that's true
who it came out to. And again, I'm just speculating. I don't know who else was in the room, how truly private it was, or if it was a team meeting where Doug is talking specifically to the starters. But if it is a true one-on-one meeting, then there's only 6 people privy to the information. And Chris Haynes is super plugged in Sacramento, obviously from the area. He's super plugged into Kings stuff. So, someone just talked about what it was, which is fine.
916-339-1140. Let's get to the phone line. Let's kick it off with Brendan, who wants to be part of the conversation. What's up, Brendan? What you got for us?
What's up, Allen? I just feel like you need a friend right now, my guy.
Yeah.
You need to be talked off the ledge here or something.
Help me then. Help me, Brendan.
Dude, I mean, I guess I get where you're coming from. I mean, just hearing the Haynes reporting and everything too, and they're not at the greatest spot as a team. I guess from my perspective, I don't know that it's like the most shocking thing, though. You know what I mean? Like, I think that this is kind of the same issues that this team has had all year, pre and post deadline, just kind of coming to a head in a way. But I guess my question to you, is there anything specific from like that Warriors game, or maybe it's the fact that they are having these meetings and stuff that's like specifically got you kind of, for lack of a better word, freaking out?
Hold on. Is this Brendan Nunes?
It is.
Oh, Brendan. I wasn't in insider mode. Oh, thanks for calling, Brendan. Now I understand all this. So, Brendan, I mean, I think the biggest thing to me is, like I said, it was just how things looked, and it's just a numbers game. How bad you feel is really just based upon what you expect, right? So to me, the best I think the Kings can do is 7 or 8. And honestly, I'm looking more at 8. So in my perspective, you drop the Warriors game, it is what it is. We'll know a lot more about this team, I think, in some way after tonight. But to me, I'm just thinking, if you mess around and you're a 10, or just find a way, and I don't even think it's possible, I guess, if the Suns figure it out, or you miss the play-in, I just think that it's just a complete nightmare of a situation. So there's no real I mean, the ledge is if I had expectations. I don't really have that high expectations. But if you don't even meet those, then we have a problem. Yeah,
that's fair. I definitely get where you're coming from. And, makes me wonder what this offseason could eventually look like. And like you pointed out, Doug, I think that in my mind, Doug is fairly safe. That's not to say that, there couldn't be something that would take place there. And I think that you're spot on. What was that?
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I see. I think his job's fairly safe, but obviously that's not to say that things couldn't go wrong there. But I mean, it's pretty obvious he's got good ties with the organization, being on the Walton staff, and then, Mike Brown didn't pick him to be on his staff, and he's the one that gets the promotion, and he almost got the job when Luke was let go in the first place. Not that I necessarily agree with any of that, but I mean, just what is this offseason going to look like? You can't imagine that DeMar is enjoying his time in Sacramento, and this isn't what he imagined he signed up for at all, as a guy that's trying to contribute to some notably winning basketball later in his career. But stylistically, I mean, they have a bunch of flaws they need to work out. The turnovers were horrible in that Golden State game. Doug mentioned that they need to be shooting more threes. That's something that I thought LaVine would probably be the biggest addition that he brought to this team that we haven't really seen. And it's just, it's not clicking right now. And you don't have the perimeter defense out there. I don't know. Maybe we see a starting lineup change, but I don't even know. It's hard to say that that's going to be DeMar in my mind.
Right.
Specifically, if we're talking closing lineup, I think DeMar has to be out there. And, maybe you shouldn't care about the optics, but the optics are really tough if you sit Zach LaVine after doing all this. And part of trading De'Aaron is you're kind of handing some keys to Malik there. So you're already willing to give up on that in a way, or maybe not give up is the right way to say it, but if you get what I mean there. So, I mean, I guess as I'm talking it through, it is a fairly gloomy outlook. I guess, my perspective is, like you said, it's based on expectations, right? Yeah,
we're up against it, Brendan, but thanks for calling in. Should give me a heads up. I would have given you a whole segment, Brendan. If you hop on StreamYard, how about we do it before the weekends, or we'll just do roundtable?
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm down. I'll be around.
Thanks, Brendan. I'm still on the ledge, but thank you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Talk to you later.
That was Brendan Nunes, Sactown Sports Kings insider. Mike, you kick us off on the other side. We are way over time. We'll pay some bills and get right back. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.